Hey strangers, welcome to another episode of The Strange Sessions. As always, I am Kurt, and I am joined by my radiant co-host and life podcasting partner, Krista.
Ooh,
Hey,
I like
Krista.
it.
And today we are joined in the studio, making his debut on The Strange Sessions in person, because he sent in stories, is our good friend Devin Zahn.
What's up, strangers?
Welcome to the podcast, Devin.
We're
Thank you for
excited to
having me.
have you.
Welcome to the Strange Cellar.
Our
What do you think of the Strange Cellar?
It's everything I hoped for and more.
And more.
You're our third Zahn officially.
Yep.
We just
Yeah,
have
we
one
just
more
gotta get
Zahn to
We gotta
go.
get Brittany.
Yep.
Get her out of bed.
She would have done this today, but it's a little early for her.
Like 8 hours
Even for
too
Devin.
early, apparently.
Devin's not a morning person, so
Well, today I'm looking a little bit more radiant than usual.
you are radiant
Does
too.
he match my
You-
radiance?
He
We're
does.
both
You
very
guys,
Oh,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
it's like I'm blinded by multiple radiance on either side of me here. But we record super early,
We
so we're happy.
I
when
mean,
anybody,
it's 7:30. It's not that early, but
for some
suppose
people it
to
is.
some people that's
Yeah,
early.
to some people that's super early.
Looking at you, Brittany.
Exactly. Devin just started his own podcast called Tales for the Dark: Creepy Internet Stories.
Yes.
And that's
Yep.
awesome. Congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
I listened to the first episode and really liked it.
Me too. Yep.
He was questioning his sound quality when
No,
we
I
came
thought
down,
the
and I
sound
thought it
quality was
sounded
good.
perfect. I
Yep.
really did.
I hope so. Like I said to you guys before we started recording, I mean, I have a whole new, found respect for you guys. I mean, it
For
takes
what we do.
a lot of work to do this, you know? I mean,
It feels like second nature now, just because we're 4 years in. But
Yeah.
Kurt does all the work.
Yeah, but the thing is, the work
I just press buttons.
I am doing, before
love researching
before
and
we started
writing.
the podcast, I would still wake up, at the butt crack of dawn early every day, and then I would go on the internet and look up interesting stuff,
Yeah.
and I just wasn't writing it down. So basically,
Right.
the only difference now is that I'm writing down what I'm interested in reading about.
And then we talk about it for an hour and,
And
a
then
half.
and then we talk about the weather for a little while, and then we talk about the rest of the stuff.
Before we forget, if you're just tuning in and you're a new listener and you don't want to sit through the titillating 20, please check the show notes. We always forget to tell you this, but check the show notes. Kurt will list the timestamp of the actual start of the topic, because we're about to welcome new strangers. We're going to do a taste test and cover housekeeping, and we won't be offended if you skip over it.
No, exactly.
We won't know.
I know people that only listen to the titillating 20 and don't listen to the rest of the
So
episode.
funny.
So,
I love it.
yep.
I love it.
Want to give
Oh, go ahead.
shout outs, but you go first.
I want to give a shout out to Xander and just send him all the love.
Yes,
We're thinking
Xander is
about you.
awesome.
We love you.
Yep. I listened to their podcast about shadow people and the Hat Man, and it's just soothing listening to
I know.
him.
They both have great voices.
They do. They're both so good at
Xander's
it.
from South Africa, so he has this amazing accent.
Yeah.
And
They
Jenna has a great voice too.
They are so good at their podcast, and it just makes me question ours.
I know.
It's like,
all
well,
of the podcasts make
yeah.
me question ours, but
Exactly.
definitely gotta love the accent.
yeah.
Yeah.
It makes
but
it so much better.
It does. It does. Shout outs to our newest strangers, and those are Martin Farrer, Ryan Schaff. Wow. Peter Bruno.
We're off to a good start,
That's
aren't
an
we?
easy one, Bruno.
Yes. Becky Dodd. I can totally do Becky Dodd,
Dodd, okay.
so to speak. Becky Dodd. Josh Arthurs, who used to be
Oh yeah,
one,
welcome,
but then
welcome back, Josh.
welcome back. Lizzie Robinson, who I've been messaging, and she is awesome. And Jennifer Lay, I never know how to pronounce this last name, and I see it all the time.
Spell it.
Goncalves. Is it Gonsalves or is it Gonclaves? I believe
I
it's
don't know.
Gonsalves.
That sounds right to
yeah.
me.
And Cynthia Ann Lorano.
Wow, we've got
that
some
was
doozies
that was
today.
a tongue twister today.
Although people usually say you do pretty well with their last names.
It's
So.
difficult. Sometimes I try to look to see if they have the Facebook pronunciation,
The phonetic.
but this time I didn't.
It's pretty smart.
Yeah, that's the easy way to do it, but I still end up screwing it up somehow. So welcome. Thank you so much, guys, for joining the strangers.
I think we have over 500 strangers now.
Yeah, we do.
We hit a milestone, and
We
I
do.
think, let me look at Instagram. Talk amongst yourselves.
How are you doing, Dev? You doing good?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, like I said, the podcast is going along well. I'm actually in the process of starting another one, but Yeah, no.
Good luck with that, because I can't imagine doing 2 podcasts at once.
I can barely do the one.
Yeah.
And not to mention the video game thing on the side,
Yes,
too.
and you do the video game
Just
podcast.
don't get burnout. When we first started this, I was still doing Paranormal Palaver, and it is a lot. We have 671 followers on Instagram, which I realize is nothing compared to a lot of podcasts, but I feel like the people who follow us truly listen. They're not just randomly following stuff.
Devin
so
and I were
feel
talking
good
on the
about
drive
it.
down here that we don't want a ton of listeners, because
It's just so much pressure.
yeah, that makes my
You know?
that makes my tummy gurgle just thinking
little
about
bit.
it.
So that means no live shows in the near future.
No,
Not in the near future. I
could do
I have kind of fantasized about a live show, but that's
I could do a
somewhere off in the
meet and
distant
greet.
future.
A meet and greet I could do where we like.
I'd almost rather do a live show.
Oh, are you serious?
To interact with people.
Well, just like
Can I just
hug
stand
them, get
behind you
their-
and wave at people?
yeah, yep.
That's my go-to, too. Smile and wave, guys. Smile and wave.
No, I just am. I'm an introvert. I just want to hang out in my basement and talk about stuff. Oh, Rhonda,
like I said,
we have to read. Oh, Rhonda says hi, Devin.
Oh, God.
Hi, Mom.
Rhonda made sure he was Rhonda made sure he was awake tonight or this morning.
Yeah, anxiety, fun stuff.
Yep.
So.
We're all just a bunch of anxiety in this room. We've all suffered through that.
We are. We should be sponsored by some CBD oil brand or
Right.
something.
Looking at you, 920 CBD.
That is where I buy my CBD gummies.
See? There
Yep.
you go. We're plugging you. You should
And
plug
Krista
us.
gave me some CBD, and
Oil.
the oil versus it's like totally different the way
totally
it hits you.
different.
Yep. Housekeeping. The one I have is next episode, people, is listener stories. So if you have
Bring
any
it.
stories you would like us to read on air, real ones, please, no fake ones. But if you have any stories you would like us to read on air, please message them to us.
I feel like we already have
We
quite
have
the
some,
treasure trove.
yes.
People have been sending them for a few months now.
Yeah. Yep.
But keep sending them.
Yes, please keep sending them. If we have an excess, we will start to just incorporate them in episodes.
Yep.
But I'm going to be reminding you guys on Facebook. Krista will probably be reminding you guys on Instagram. Send us any personal stories, and the next episode will be listener stories. And then I believe you and I also have to do a 20-minute segment for a special project coming up. Mm-hmm. Looking at you.
Nice little collaboration.
Yep. Look, I don't know if should I say. And I'm not going to even say it because I don't know if we're supposed to say it yet.
Okay.
So it's going to be a secret, but there's
Hush,
going to be a little
hush.
collaboration.
Thank you to everyone who's ordered T-shirts and mugs. I'm hoping to put a post on Instagram with everybody with their merch. I'm just getting permission from people because I don't want to just be posting people's photos on Instagram. But very exciting. I'm out of mediums.
Are you?
Yeah. It's a popular size.
I love my shirt.
Yeah,
I love
me
my
too.
shirt. Do we have any other housekeeping?
Probably.
One of these days, I'm going to start using my notepad app on my phone to jot down things that pop in my head instead of being
yeah.
like, oh no, I'll remember that.
I know. I'm like, should I look at my messages on Instagram and see if anybody said something I want? Oh, my phone doesn't recognize my face with a microphone in front of it. Go figure. Or if I'm yawning, it doesn't like that either.
But yeah, definitely listener stories is coming up. That's always like one of our more popular episodes.
I do got to say it is
It's
Yeah.
probably
one of
my favorite.
episodes. Yeah.
No, I don't. Yeah, probably, but no. It eludes me at the moment.
Okay, then we will just jump into our taste test. The first one,
Actually,
believe.
should we have Devin taste?
Oh, he could taste the Idaho Spud.
We made Corey
God.
taste it
Yeah,
last
you gotta
time,
eat-
too.
It's good. It
It's-
tastes
I
like
thought it was
it's like an
delicious.
Almond Joy or a Mounds bar.
Okay, I'm
Minus
trusting
the
you guys.
almonds.
Yeah.
So when it says Idaho Spud, does that mean it's actually a potato?
No, no.
I
or-
think it's supposed to look like a potato, and it did come from Idaho.
Oh wow. Yeah, that looks pretty.
It looks like a Mounds bar.
Yeah, kind of.
I love coconut.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really good.
Mounds bar? With like a milky way. Didn't we say it was like
I
a
think
Three
it's mixed
Musketeers?
with, yeah,
like a Three Musketeers
and
chocolatey
like a,
kind of
a
filling.
Mounds bar or something.
It's definitely got, I can see the Three Musketeers.
Yeah. It's really coconutty, which I like because some things skimp on the coconut because coconut's kind of a love-hate.
Yep, you
love
either
it or
love it or
hate
hate
it
it.
thing. You approve?
Oh,
Out of 10?
out of 10, I mean, I got to give it like a 7.
Okay.
To be honest,
7 is acceptable.
Yeah.
This next one we got is from the Norway box, I believe.
Okay.
I don't really know
No,
what this...
you didn't take anything out of the Norway box.
What was this
time.
box?
That's the Norway box.
I did take something
you
out of the
did?
Norway box.
Okay.
Yep.
We have 3
so
boxes of
disorganized.
goodies that
Yeah, we
I know
got
we
so
are
much
very
goodies, you guys,
disorganized.
and we haven't had anything yucky yet. Everybody's asking if we're going to try the pickle seltzer, and we're going to.
Oh,
I
yeah,
might
that
I
sounds
might
good.
just buy one. So if you've already sent one, let me know. Otherwise, I'll maybe buy one for the next
Yeah,
episode.
if we have anything en route.
This one is from the Norway box,
Okay,
and
I'm
it
excited.
is. I don't know what it is, but it
Are they
is.
taped together?
No, it's
Okay,
just
good.
one thing.
That means there's no hazelnuts or anything.
It's
in
also my nickname.
it. Oh boy, I can't wait to see what this is.
Oh God.
I'm ready.
Here we
With
go.
Oh no.
Big,
Big
hunk.
hunk.
Oh God.
That's from Coleman.
Oh, this is one that's from
Yeah,
Coleman?
that's from Coleman.
Like, I don't know if it's meat or candy.
Maybe it's meat candy.
Maybe it is meat candy. Meat candy's my
let me
username
take
on
a
some
picture.
websites I go on.
Oh, come on.
I honestly don't even know what to think about that.
Just for some background, Kurt's known Devin much longer than I have.
I've known him
but
since he was a little kid.
I've known Devin since 15 years. So
Yeah, it's
he
been
was-
it's been a while.
he was just a little quiet guy sitting in the back of a car when we went to St. Nazianz to
Yes.
Still one of the
walk
best
around.
memories.
Yeah.
Yep. I loved that place.
I know. We're gonna
So this
talk
is
about
probably
that.
really awkward for him to hear us making sexual innuendo jokes.
What was sexual innuendo joke?
The innuendos is
The
my
meat
bread
candy?
and butter.
Yeah.
Yeah, the meat candy. Okay.
I think it's candy. I think it's like a
I think it's gonna be like toffee. Don't you
yeah.
think?
I think it's gonna be like
Big chunk.
like a big airhead.
It's low fat and gluten free, and it
can't get over
has
I don't know if it could be meat.
230 calories. So are we gonna split this like 3 ways? We'll
Yep.
figure it out.
Honestly, kind of afraid to
Ooh,
try it
no, I'm
3 ways.
excited.
Ooh, okay, never
Oh,
mind.
there's some kind of nut.
That's what she said.
There's
I'm sorry.
There's some kind of. Oh,
Okay, I just broke a piece off.
I got to see what nuts they are.
Oh shoot, they look like pistachios to me, but I don't know that for sure.
It is kind of like a toffee, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, it smells really good. It's kind of like a nougat, actually.
Interesting.
Nougat. Let me take a picture. I got it everywhere.
Oh, I suppose, yeah, you're allergic to, what is it again?
Hazelnuts.
Pecans, Brazil nuts, and hazelnuts.
Smells like nougat.
Yeah, kind of
Ooh,
like
it
a white
smells
chocolate
like-
kind of thing. Huh?
It smells like a payday.
Oh,
Yes, it
Does it smell like
totally
a
does smell
payday?
like a payday.
Oh, it's really?
Oh, I did not expect that.
No.
It's like
You're expecting taffy.
It's not saffy.
I
You're expecting
can't. Oh my
taffy.
god.
I think I pulled the tooth out.
I think I dislocated my jaw.
Wow.
I mean,
Is this like?
it tastes
Is
good,
this sponsored by the American Dental Association?
but wait. I mean, once you get chewing, it's pretty
Yeah.
good, but
It's kind of like the Mary Janes, where once you get sucking on them, yep,
It is definitely going to take a while to get this one down. Oh my god.
it's good though. It's
the flavor is really good. It's just, I mean, if you've got
if-
cavities or
I'm
fillings
chewing
or
and it's not going away. I'm
Yeah, say
chewing
goodbye
on
to
any
those.
dental work,
Yeah, yeah.
you might want to steer clear of
If
these.
you got braces,
It's like stuck to my thumb.
Like, yeah.
oh my gosh,
It's good. I mean, it tastes good.
I mean, I think it's really tasty.
it tastes like a payday.
but way more work.
Yeah,
I'm
Like-
not gonna finish this because
yeah.
we don't have that kind of time.
I don't know if I'm gonna finish this in my mouth by the end of the episode.
They make you work for it.
They really do. Maybe that's why it's called a payday.
I'm like sweating trying to chew this thing. Okay,
I can't.
It was a lot.
okay.
I mean, I thought it was good. I give it like an 8 for flavor, but I'm going to give it like a 6 for texture because it's just too hard.
I'm gonna give it a 7 overall.
Okay. Yeah, what is that average?
Damn.
I don't know. I'm going with. I don't know. I have to go with 6. I mean, the taste is good, but the
Oh, yeah.
text. I mean, it's too hard.
I'm a big texture person, and this texture is just too. It's too much work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Could you imagine eating that whole
It's
thing?
too busy.
It's too busy.
Too busy.
Kurt's still chewing.
I'm. It's just not leaving. Like I can't. I don't know what to do.
You're gonna have to just swallow it eventually.
Okay, on to our next. Oh, I'm spitting pieces of nut out. on to our next one. What box was this one from?
You tell me. This was Coleman,
Okay, this one was.
and if something came out of that box with the green paper, that's Norway.
No, the other box.
Okay, that's Jen. That's
Okay,
who
yeah.
sent us all the Bigfoot
Okay.
stuff last time.
Okay.
We're so confused.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Now we have sea salted and caramel beaver nuggets.
I'm gonna love those.
We have beaver nuggets.
I'm
Actual beavers?
excited about the beaver nuggets.
Uniquely delicious, light and crispy corn puffs covered with a decadent caramel and bold sea salt coating. They're baked, not fried.
We've gotten something like this from someone in the past, and they were amazing. They're addictive.
Yeah. You ready?
I'm ready.
That
I gotta
sounds
take a picture.
awesome.
I got a feeling
are
that's
gonna be
good. It's going to be at least a 9. That's my guess.
Anything? I mean, they had me at sea salted caramel,
My
but
jaw hurts from that thing.
I know that was a lot of work.
I know. I kind of felt mine pop the first bite down.
I think my crown is gone.
Oh, I want them all.
Ooh.
They look like little shrimp.
But they're like big beaver nuggets. They're not
They are
like
big
small.
beaver nuggets.
Oh, I've had something like this before. So these are really good.
Yes.
I mean, these cannot be bad. I know I've said that before and regretted saying that, but these literally cannot be bad.
No, I agree. You ready?
I'm ready. Oh.
It's like caramel corn.
But like really coated, like heavily coated caramel corn.
It's like one of those sweet Cheetos they used to sell.
Yes. Yep.
These are so good.
Absolutely.
I'm
Can
gonna
I give them 11?
if you want, we've given stuff 11. I'm going to give it a 9.
And they're just the right amount of salty.
Oh yeah.
I feel like they could be saltier.
Oh my god.
Those are really good.
They're really good.
I think Rhonda. I think Krista's going to claim the rest of the beaver nuggets.
Oh, yours. You seem to really enjoy them.
Oh my god. Okay. 2 more and I'm done.
Krista's like a sucker for anything sea salt caramel
And chocolate.
and chocolate.
If these were like also coated in chocolate, I'd have to like excuse myself for a moment.
I probably
Okay,
would
one
too.
more. That was delicious.
That
Thank
was
you,
really good.
Jen. Thank you, Coleman.
Thank you guys.
Beav. I've never pronounced her name right. I think she did tell
We
me.
didn't grab anything from Norway
Yeah,
today.
did we?
No.
Okay.
Wow, we're really confused about what boxes
Yeah.
these came from. No, that
We're
was
gonna have to
definitely
like
from
write.
Coleman.
We should write on there where they're from, even though they already
Well,
have
I
written
just
on
know
there where
that
they're
box is Norway because it's still loaded with tons of stuff.
from. When the zombies come, we're coming down here because we can subsist
Heck
off
yeah.
this for years.
Although I did drink all the coffee that was down here.
Oh, but we also have our ceremonial package opening
Ceremonial.
dagger.
Yes. I didn't have to use that today.
Okay, are we ready?
We're ready.
All good.
Since Devin is here today, we're going to be talking about UFOs. Just kidding.
What the heck's that supposed to be?
Devin's like, what? We are going to be revisiting, because I think we did an episode on this. We're going to be revisiting and doing a deep dive on that nasty hombre that shows up to a lot of people, the Hat Man. And it's weird.
It is weird.
This one is bizarre. I rented the documentary Hat Man, Documented Cases of Pure Evil, and watched that. It cost me like $4.
On Prime.
Yes.
Okay.
It was on Prime. They had the HD version and the not so HD version, so I got the not so HD version, but it was still good.
It was good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I remember it being I don't know if it was. I was mixing it up with like the Black Eyed Kid one, but I mean, I noticed it was a little off from what I've experienced. But.
Yeah, it's
Well, I know I watched a documentary on sleep paralysis, and it seemed to be very much the same style. And I remember thinking, this is not what my experience has been with sleep
no,
paralysis.
but we're going to get into the sleep paralysis part of it because Devin and I were talking about that on the way down here.
Yeah, I feel like we went through the entire. Like,
Yeah,
plan
we
for
talked
it,
about
yeah.
theories, talked about everything. So I'm just going to jump in. We're going to start with this article. It's from an October 30th, 2018 article on quartz.com called, quote, "Why Everyone Around the World is Having the Same Nightmare." The article says, quote, "The first time Tim Brown saw the Hat Man, he was 14 years old and curled up in his bed in Nashville, Tennessee. He was dozing with the only light in the room coming from the flicker of late-night television. As he drifted off to sleep, a sound from the television shook him back awake. And that's when he saw him, the dark figure of a man, as featureless as the shadows where he stood. He was tall, he wore a broad-brimmed hat and a trench coat. He didn't say a word, he didn't need to. The fear sucked the breath from Brown's chest, rendering him mute and immobile. The man lingered just outside the frame of Brown's bedroom door, flickering in the shadows between the hallway and his grandmother's room. Finally, as if breaking a spell cast over him, Brown threw himself from his bed screaming and ran into the hallway for a fight, but the man was gone." Still haunted by the vision more than a decade later, in 2008, Brown posted his story on a blog he called the Hat Man Project and encouraged others to share as well. He also scoured the internet and found more posts on forums and blogs describing similar encounters. The global anthology of Hatman stories has only grown since. The shape of the frightening figure occasionally varies, but the way he makes his victims feel never does, utterly paralyzed with terror and breathless, as if fear had frozen them from the inside out. The Hatman has been the subject of documentaries and seems to have inspired one of the more chilling ghosts in the Netflix horror show The Haunting of Hill House, which I still have not watched.
It's good.
Otherwise, sober-minded people report having woken from their dreams to see the figure. Some dismiss him as a bad dream or a neurological quirk. Others feel in his presence something much more sinister and otherworldly. But if the Hatman is just a nightmare, how did the whole world start having the same bad dream at once? So that's kind of the Hatman in a nutshell. Like, he appears to people. Devin has had run-ins with this creature, so
Pretty much my entire life.
pretty much his entire life. So if you want to jump in and just talk about your stories you had with the Hatman, definitely feel free.
Yeah, there's a lot, so I don't know if you want me to do it all at once or just kind of in parts.
If you want to do it in parts, that's fine.
I mean, the original was probably the worst one.
That was when you were a kid. That's back when...
That's the one that kind of caused all my issues.
Because Mark and Rhonda would tell me about that, about how...
You wouldn't sleep in your bed.
Yeah.
I remember that.
4 years. 4 years I slept on my parents' floor on a sleeping bag because I remember it like it was yesterday. I was maybe 8 years old, 9 years old, reading looking at pictures in a Disney book. I can tell you the exact book. We probably still have it. But all the lights were on, hallway, everything, my room, and I look up and over to my doorway, and I actually see this thing actively walking out of my room, out of the bathroom next to my room, I should say. And it just stood in my doorway. It was super tall, had all the classic features, the trench coat, the top hat, and I don't even really remember how I got out of the room. I just remember somehow getting past it and running screaming into my sister's room just on the other side of the hall. And ever since that day, it took me 4 years to even sleep in my room again. I didn't even go in my room at all.
No, you just didn't even want to go in there to grab something.
Right.
And I don't know why. They didn't believe me for a while there.
Which is interesting because they're paranormal investigators. So,
and I think it's because that we were kind of around that our entire lives.
Yeah, but it's like with my apartment with Natalie. When Natalie noticed stuff starting to happen, I pish-poshed her. I'm like, no, I'm a ghost
I would
hunter.
know
If
if
there
this
was
was
something,
haunted, yeah.
and then all of a sudden I hear the voice one night. So
Yeah.
I think because we do that, we're predispositioned to think that there's nothing here because
we would notice.
We would notice.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It only appears. To certain people.
Yeah.
In my research, I'm gonna let you go into that, but it does really only appear to certain people. Me and my sister have been dealing with it. We've even had shared experiences with it. So,
And that's one thing that I've stumbled across a lot in reading these stories and researching them is there's a lot of shared experiences and a lot of experiences where it stays with you throughout your life. That if you see it when you're a child, it'll probably pop up again when you're older.
Yeah, I've seen it this past week too. With everything that's happened, I've been seeing it out of the corner of my eye everywhere I go, even at work.
So when in this first experience, when it walked out of the bathroom, what did it stop in your doorway and look at you, or what did it do?
It just stood in my doorway.
Okay.
It walked out of the bathroom and just kind of stood in my doorway. It was huge, by the way.
Like blocking your whole doorway, kind of thing.
The hat. You could see make out a hat, but it was over the top of the doorway. So.
And the thing that's weird with that is in a lot of these, it involves the doorway, like him peering around the door at you. And that's what happened to me with that green thing that I saw in my bedroom when I was a kid. That was almost like a Hatman encounter, but it wasn't the Hatman because it was green. And like I said, it had the skull-like face and it had that weird body where it was where you could see the muscular structure. So there was no hat. It was just like a ghostly looking thing, but it followed a lot of what the Hatman,
the hallmarks
of the Hatman.
It definitely validated things for me. Going through that research, finding out that they actually hang out in doorways a lot of times. So a lot of these things that I didn't even realize growing up, I'm finding out about this thing. Me and my sister both did a lot of research because we wanted to know what we were dealing with. So it's crazy.
It's bizarre.
It's hard to tell people because,
yeah,
people are going to think you're crazy for seeing it.
Well, yeah.
Right.
That's why, but I guess I just never cared if people thought, because I
Yeah.
told a lot of people about the thing I saw or the thing in my apartment.
I also think sometimes when you tell stories like that, you realize you're not alone in having at least paranormal
Well, especially with
experiences.
the Hat Man. Like,
Everybody,
it's so
yeah, and
weird how many people this happens to them.
Yes.
And they don't even realize it's a thing until
a
they
thing, right.
they research it, and then all of a sudden they're like, holy cow, people all over the world see this thing.
Yeah. It's just, it's one of those things. It changes you. You can feel
Yeah.
the fear when every time we saw it. That house wasn't good, and I don't think anyone but me and my sister really realized that. So
I remember a story your mom told in that house about you.
Yeah.
She was sitting downstairs. I think maybe Britt was there with her.
Yeah.
And she saw you come down the stairs and then go back up the stairs.
Actually, she saw me go into the kitchen and just kind of.
Okay.
I never really
Yes.
came
She asked
back.
if you were hungry or something like that, but
And she
Britt's
never-
like,
yeah.
Devin didn't come down here. He's not down here.
Yeah, and she had come upstairs and found me in my room playing video games like I normally do.
That's so weird. So it was like something that looked like you that went into
Well, did it look like you, or did she just assume it was you?
She swears it was me.
So it looked like you.
That's creepy.
interesting. It's like
That's
a creepy
really creepy.
doppelganger situation.
Which who knows? Maybe that's
Maybe
all
that's
the
a
same
Hat
entity.
Man
Yeah.
shape shifting.
I've always. I have a theory where they are like, what are those called? Like
Doppelganger.
doppelgangers.
They can put whatever form they want.
Yeah.
This is still from that Quartz article. This is kind of a description of what it is. It said it's a very distinctively shaped figure that looks like a tall, sometimes unusually tall, male shadow wearing a wide-brimmed hat in a trench coat or a cloak. Sometimes the Hat Man stands in the corner of their room at night, or it's seen standing over them, watching them as they are sleeping. Some witnesses say that they see red glowing eyes on the figure. Some people say the figure tries to attack them, scares them, or holds them down as they are in bed, paralyzing them. The Hat Man sometimes carries a gold pocket watch that he'll occasionally look at, which suggests that he's sticking around just long enough to be curious about the time. Some people report that the Hat Man is watching, and this one pops up a lot, and this one really, really creeps me out. Some people report that either the Hat Man is watching them using a mirror in the bedroom, or he is watching them from the mirror in the bedroom. I like mirrors. I don't like mirrors. Mirrors weird me out. And there's a lot of
definitely.
tie-ins with the Hat Man and mirrors.
Well, and the paranormal and mirrors.
The Hat Man has also been reported to make himself visible to multiple generations of the same family or to a witness's friends and family. And before we go farther, I told Devin about this on the way down here, but when I started looking into this, which was actually weeks ago, because I've kind of been doing this here and there, with school, it hasn't been super easy. But I've been researching this here and there for, I want to say, maybe 3 or 4 weeks. So it's been a while. But I've had 2 weird things happen where I watched an interview with Rosemary Ellen Guiley, who is like kind of one of the foremost researchers / theorists looking into this stuff. And one of her quotes on there is that when you start looking into the Hat Man starts looking into you.
That's a creepy thought,
It's a
right?
super creepy thought. But there was one day, I want to say it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I was leaving work, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, school was done. I walked out of the back door of school and was walking to the back parking lot where my car is, and like 700 feet away, there's a road that runs along the school. So I walk out and I'm looking, and at the bottom of one of the driveways, it looked like a tall person wearing a suit just watching me. I didn't see a hat. I don't remember if there was a hat. But it was just like out of place and bizarre that it looked like somebody wearing a gray suit just standing down at the bottom of the driveway watching me as I walked out. And at the time I was like, that's weird. And I looked down, I went and fumbled and got my keys out of my lunch bag, which, you know how klutzy I am. It took me a little while, maybe 10, 15 seconds. And when I looked up, the thing was gone. And it could have just been somebody getting picked up. There could have been a car that picked the person up. But it was weird. It like stood out to me that was really weird. It was just, it's one of those things that when it's happening at the time, it just feels bizarre.
Yeah.
And then
Out of place.
the night before last, I don't sleep well. We know that. I woke up at one point in the middle of the night and I rolled over. So I was facing the side of the room the window was on, and I rolled over and I heard what the only way I can describe it is that it was like a mechanical chuckle. And it was really weird. And it was weird that it was like immediate fear. like a shock through my body, like an immediate fear.
And you were awake?
Yes.
You weren't coming out of
No,
sleep?
I was awake.
Okay.
I was awake because I had rolled over. I looked what time it was. I might have even gotten a drink of water, and I rolled back over and just shut my eyes when I heard this. And that's the only way I can describe it, is that it's a weird mechanical chuckle.
That kind of happened a lot at the old house, too. Whenever we'd be falling asleep or, just laying down first, you'd always hear a whisper in your ear. A lot of times it would be our names. So, and Brittany had it happen to her, too. So,
And the thing is, like, I noticed the next morning I forgot to shut my window. I usually close my window most of the way at night, but it was open like halfway. So I would rationalize it away as being like maybe somebody on a motorcycle, like revving their motorcycle at 1 or 2 in the morning or whatever.
Could have been a bird or a squirrel. They make weird noises.
Yeah, yeah. So it could have
I
been,
don't know.
but it didn't sound like anything that I have ever heard that I could place as a machine. But it was like a chuckle, like if you did a chuckle with like a mechanical thing. It was weird. Those are the two things that, because I was wondering, like, I'm really looking into this stuff. Is something going to start, like, happening now?
and that's the thing. I don't think it's just the visuals. I think it is the other experiences, too. I think he can actually do stuff, not just scare you by showing up in your room.
And this was on one of the podcasts, so I don't remember which podcast I listened to, and I don't remember anything about this story. But this story, it was, like, light out, and I was driving to school, and I heard this story, and I was like, ugh. But it was... this woman would see a shadow person or the Hat Man like hanging out in her doorway a lot. And one night she was in bed and she was facing away from the door and she felt something like pressure on the bed, like something got into the bed with her. And she said it was like somebody laid down next to her in bed. And she said the weird thing was that it was like they were fidgeting, like they couldn't get comfortable, like they were rolling around, like they couldn't get comfortable. And finally it stopped, and this thing put its arm on her. And it said she screamed, and then the thing screamed back at her.
Oh, no,
Which
no.
totally...
How is
totally
that the
no.
creepiest part?
So that totally was like, yeah. So that freaked me out. And
that just gave me the chills.
Yeah. There was a thing screaming back at her that freaked me out.
All the stuff leading up to it, I was like, I've had those sensations in sleep paralysis, but
the thing screaming back at her.
Oh my God.
So yeah, it was like I said, it was like early in the morning, sun was up, and I was like, oh my God, now I'm creeped out.
Wow.
Listen to that in my car.
You're so vulnerable when you're in your bed.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But the chuckle thing was weird. I'm just going to assume it was something outside my window or something.
Is that the first unexplained thing that's happened in that apartment?
Yes, except like maybe 5-6 months ago, I rolled over the other way and thought I saw somebody standing by my bed. And then I like turned my light on. There was nothing there. But it wasn't really a super scary thing. But that was like one of the only things.
Sometimes when you first wake up, those
So that one I
shadows
totally
can do weird
discounted. That
stuff.
one I have totally discounted. But the chuckle thing was weird.
I mean,
That's creepy.
they are thought of as observers.
Yeah,
So,
and that's the thing.
I mean, I lost my train of thought, but yeah, they are thought of as observers. So I mean, it's very possible that they're just trying to make it known to you that they're present.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that they want you to know they're there and they want you to be afraid. This is from an article from Mysterious Universe, which is awesome, from Nick Redfern, an author that I really, really like. It's from December 12th, 2014 article called Beware the Hat Man. It says, quote, many of the encounters occur while the victim is in a distinct altered state, that of sleeping. Nightmarish accounts of terrifying visitations in the early hours of the morning from the Hat Man abound in pages of Heidi's book. The Heidi is Heidi Hollis, and she is one of the people that kind of started the whole shadow man, shadow person phenomena. She kind of got the ball rolling on that.
Like coined the term?
Coined the term,
okay.
Yeah. So that's who Heidi is. None of these encounters are positive. All of them are negative. The Hat Man appears to be attracted to or provokes, maybe even both, bad luck, misfortune, ill health, and even death. Soul stealing may be one of the calling cards of the horror in the hat. What makes the Hat Man so difficult to pin down in terms of what he is and what he represents is that he appears in numerous situations. Those who have dabbled with Ouija boards have received ominous visits, as have alien abductees who have reported seeing the Hat Man in connection with the so-called Greys and Mantis-type aliens. Peoples whose lives have taken bad turns find themselves plagued by the Hat Man. Even more ominous, the Hat Man appears to be attracted to certain families. Several generations will report sightings of this grim and devious thing. And if that was not enough, Heidi tells of how the Hat Man intruded upon her very own life. Friends and family then started reporting strange Hatman experiences. As Heidi's research progressed, so did what appeared to be an uncanny awareness on the part of the Hatman that Heidi was tracking him down. This is something I personally experienced on a number of occasions. When we look for these entities, something appears to alert them to what we're doing. Heidi also notes that more than a few witnesses to the Hatman have had prophetic dreams and nightmares of a dark and apocalyptic future involving nuclear war.
That actually...
Really?
Especially around the time afterwards, after the first time, I would get these really bad night terrors. I would be thrashing around in my sleep, and my parents were not able to wake me up. I don't remember anything. I just remember it was something bad that would happen to my family. So
that's just weird.
I do think, and I always make these comments, but I remember having dreams like that as a kid too. I think that's common for kids to have apocalyptic dreams or dreams where something happens to their family.
Yeah.
And it's weird. I mean, I can't remember anything about it. I mean, I remember like stars and my dad, and that's it. But I remember it was bad, yeah. So
that's just weird. Like I'll get to it.
You just curded yourself.
I just don't know what this is. I'm going to read a couple Reddit stories. There are Hatman stories all over the internet on Reddit. The thing is, though, a lot of them are the same. I was sleeping. I woke up. I saw this hat, like this man wearing a hat in my room, and it creeped me out. And a lot of them are like that. So I'm just going to read like 2 random stories I got off Reddit. First one is from Reddit user Aria153. She says, quote, I think it's a she. I experienced the Hatman in normal, everyday waking life. I was taking the trash out once at 3 a.m. and I had my eyes to the ground so I could see what I was doing because it was dark, and I went to lift the trash can lid to throw the trash bag away. I stopped in my tracks because I almost bumped into this figure. He was almost 8 feet tall, and he clearly had a cape and a brimmed hat on. He was way darker than the darkness around us. He was walking east while I was walking north. I just kept my eyes on him until he slowly faded off into the rest of my backyard. The weird thing is he wasn't bobbing up and down when he was walking. He was just gliding. Soon after this experience, my dog died. I heard people say that bad things happen when they encounter him in waking life. My dog died getting stuck in a car in our backyard, which was exactly parked in the distance that he walked off to. I don't even know how she got in there. It's very odd, but it wasn't in dreams that I saw him. It was in real life. Reddit user...
Almost like a Grim Reaper scenario.
Yeah. Reddit user Meg Ryan 2020, I don't think it's the Meg Ryan, says, quote, I always referred to the Hatman I saw as a kid as a shadow person because I didn't realize that shadow people didn't all have the hats on. But I just found out yesterday on another subreddit that has its own name, LOL. I saw him quite a lot around my house when I was little. I would be on the floor reading a book and see him in my peripheral vision, and when I would look, he slid away out of sight or ran away really quickly. Or there were times when I would be in bed with my bedroom door open and I would see him standing down the hallway staring at me. Anyway, we had a weird incident where my dad was out working and my mom had gone to bed. It was really late at night. I was downstairs and I turned off the TV and headed upstairs to bed. We had a bathroom right at the top of the stairs, and I saw a man in there in the dark, except he was real. This guy had some type of weird goggles on him that I'm assuming was night vision. He saw me, and then he put a finger to his lips to basically tell me not to scream.
That's a weird feature.
I know. That's really creepy.
Are you sure you just didn't have an intruder in your house?
I ran to my bedroom and was terrified. Since I could see the top of the stairs from my bed, I peeked out, and I saw this man slink down the stairs. Eventually, my dad got home really late, and the next morning he asked us why the front door was left open. It had been closed when I went up to bed. Since I saw the guy who was in the house, my dad took me to the police station to tell them and make a report. He didn't take anything or do anything besides just creeping around in my house in the dark as far as we know. Since I'm mentioning the guy, I thought I might as well tell the police about the Hatman I see too. The police did not really want to pursue anything farther after that. They dismissed the whole actual man in my house situation. My dad didn't make me feel like I was imagining things, but he didn't argue with the police not caring, so I think he did question if I had actually seen what I said I did. We still couldn't explain the window or door though. Weird, because I didn't hear a thing when I was watching TV and I was all alone. My mom and siblings were sleeping at the time, so this guy could have done whatever he wanted to me. A couple weeks later, my dad was in the kitchen, and out of the corner of his eye, he saw the Hatman. Since I had just recently reported seeing someone in the house, he thought that this guy had broken in again. Hatman was initially standing at one end of the kitchen, but ran, quotation mark, around the corner into the living room when my dad saw him. My dad ran to follow it and was completely bewildered because nobody was there. Our house growing up was always really messy. Toys and papers were all over the floor at times, and my dad was weirded out that the thing he saw running made no noise at all when it went into the living room. It would have definitely stepped on things and made noise. He believed me after that, but I actually did not see the Hat Man anymore after my dad saw him. This was the 90s, and I was just a kid, like second grade. I didn't have any resources to try to figure out what this shadow man with the hat actually was, and I didn't learn about shadow people until I was an adult.
I think they had an intruder in their house.
I don't know.
A man wearing night vision, and then
I don't feel like that was a real person. I don't. I feel like that's weird.
I'm 50-50 on it.
Yeah, and
I feel like she's having Hat Man experiences, which have helped.
But then the dad saw the Hat Man.
Yeah, I believe those things were happening. I just think there was an actual intruder in her house.
I don't. I think that was something to do with that. I really do. I don't think that was somebody with night goggles in their house.
Creepy.
Yeah.
Dude, there are creepy people out there.
There are, but I feel like it's tied in with
She may have almost been abducted.
I feel like it's tied in with the Hat Man situation because the Hat Man, the dad saw the Hat Man.
I mean, maybe the Hat Man makes people more attractive to predators or whatever.
You know, and then we get back into what we talked about in that one episode of Missing 411 where they talk about stealth technology. Is the Hat Man maybe some kind of weird stealth technology that the government is trying
Why would the Hat Man need night vision goggles, though?
I don't know.
Yeah, that part kind of.
But she said it was just like weird goggles. So I don't know. I thought that story was fascinating. But most of them are the run of the mill. A lot of them are. I think you had one like this too, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of them are. I saw him out my window when I was wide awake, standing
you and
under.
Brittany, is that the one you both saw?
There's a lot of people like seen it standing under a streetlight. There's ones where people say that they just happen to walk past their window at like 3 p.m. and like standing under a streetlight is some weird shadow figure wearing a hat, just like looking at the person looking out the window.
And that's the crazy thing about reading all these accounts is how many of these things actually kind of happened to me and my sister.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot in common with all of these with what happened to you.
The window was 9 feet off the ground. Yeah. So and we saw it at shoulder height pass right by. Just the shoulder and the top hat and the head just.
When did that happen? Was that a recent one?
That was probably...
Was that the old house?
It was at the old house. I don't know if you remember the island, the kitchen island, looking into my parents' room. It was out the window by the closet there.
Okay.
And,
so into the backyard?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was 9 feet tall. My sister actually at a different point saw it out that same window, standing across the fence in my neighbor's yard. So me and her were actually...
It's creepy.
It's so creepy.
I actually saw the eyes too, and that's
some people do and some people don't, and that's what's weird.
And that's something I haven't told many people.
Yeah.
Is we were playing hide and seek one day, and our old garage before we got the new one.
Yes.
It was completely pitch black in there, but there were these two like yellow eyes staring at me.
Okay.
They were yellow.
Yeah. Some people see its eyes and some people don't.
And
it sounds like sometimes you do and sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a different entity sometimes, or the same one just taking different forms?
Well, I mean, you guys know me and my sister. I mean, we consider ourselves empaths. I mean, and sensitives, and I don't know. I think with anything sensitive, I think you get more entities attracted to you because they know you can sense them.
I'm honestly surprised that I didn't have more stuff like looking into this. You know what I mean? I had a couple weird
Note
things.
to self, don't research the Hat Man, Krista. We all know there's no danger of that happening.
Don't sell yourself too short.
We're going to jump into theories.
Okay.
All right.
First theory, the one that always pops up.
Sleep paralysis. No?
One of our little bugbears that shows up in all of our stuff. Sleep paralysis.
Okay.
That's always a thing. And again, this is during the rapid eye movement or REM stage of sleep. The muscles relax to the point where they become immobilized, probably to keep us from violently acting out our dreams when we sleep. And they always talk about how like a dog runs in its sleep. Like imagine us running in our sleep if we were dreaming of running. This is also the stage of the most intense dreams. People who experience sleep paralysis have essentially woken up before they've stopped dreaming. It's an incredibly common sleep problem. An estimated 8% of people experience it regularly, and some estimates have placed the number of people who have had it at least once in their life as high as 40%. That's crazy. I'm so glad I've never had it. I hate it.
Yeah, that would terrify me.
It's very terrifying.
Many who experience sleep paralysis also experience hypnagogic hallucinations, vivid images perceived in a transition from wakefulness to sleep, or the other way around. Spiders or insects crawling up the walls is a particularly common vision, according to Alan Avidan, a professor of neurology at the University of California, Los Angeles, and director of the UCLA Sleep Disorders Center. So are human-shaped figures. These episodes are often accompanied by a profound sense of fear and anxiety and the sense that something is trying to harm the sleeper. Avidan says, quote, what they're seeing is very real to them, and they're reacting to this image in a way that seems to be similar across individuals, across cultures, and across geographies.
Well, see, I mean, that one's kind of tough for me to buy because my experiences were all when I was wide awake.
A lot of experience. Not, I would say the majority of the Hat Man experiences are when a person is sleeping or just wakes up, but a lot of them are when the person is awake. So, and this goes back to the old hag thing. A lot of people, when they have sleep paralysis, like picture an old hag standing on or sitting on their chest, so they can't breathe and like trying to choke them.
I've never had that.
No, but the old hag syndrome is a thing. So then the question is, did that become the Hat Man? I mean, are people?
Well, I have seen a person standing in the doorway or a person standing at the end of my bed. Always a man, I can't see any details. There's never been a hat involved.
Yeah.
I've been touched. I've had something scream in my ear, actually, which is funny. I had forgotten about that. But I've never had a Hat Man experience. And I personally have always felt mine are not paranormal. It feels like it in the moment.
Yeah.
You feel like you are being visited by something otherworldly, and it's terrifying, and your heart is pounding, and
I was going to say, welcome to the club.
yeah, it's so terrifying. But to me, it's sleep paralysis. There's a scientific explanation for it. So I don't think I've been visited by ghosts in my sleep.
Going back to that Quartz article, that article says, quote, Christopher French, a psychology professor at Goldsmiths, University of London, thinks something very similar is happening with sleep paralysis and the Hat Man. In sleep paralysis, French says, quote, you're in this weird kind of hybrid state, a mix of normal waking consciousness and dream consciousness. You know you can't move. You can see that you're in your bedroom, so it feels very, very real. He also says, when I sat and thought about the Hat Man, the thing that comes to my mind was Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street. He continued, this notion that you can be attacked when you're asleep, that's when you're vulnerable. And of course, Freddy Krueger wears a hat. The horror film Nightmare on Elm Street came out in 1984. In it, a terrifying man in a broad-brimmed hat attacks victims in their sleep. Freddy Krueger's distinctive silhouette became an iconic symbol of fear for our generation. It's possible that Krueger has infiltrated some of our nightmares and that by sharing our stories on the internet, we are creating the stuff of other people's nightmares too. So they're saying that what people used to perceive as the old hag, now people are perceiving it as the Shadow Man because of the collective consciousness of, the Hat Man, of the collective consciousness of people seeing the Nightmare on Elm Street movies.
So, I mean, kind of like a Talpa kind of situation?
Kind of like a Talpa, but what they're suggesting it is that people who, like back in the day, people would see the old hag. And in more recent times, people are seeing the
Slender Man,
the Hat Man, because people have this ingrained image of Freddy Krueger's movies where he's trying to kill people in their sleep. So they're saying that it's just sleep paralysis, but your mind is making it be something, and now it's changed from this old hag to being like a Freddy Krueger type creature.
That's more modern.
Because that's more modern.
So like the Slender Man might be the next thing that people
But
start
what about
seeing.
my 6th grader that told me when I talked about being a ghost hunter that he saw a person in his room that had a cloak on and a hat.
Yeah.
So it's like
Sounds
a
like
lot
we
of
got a
people,
Hat Man.
that
What's
see the Hat Man
interesting,
probably
too-
have never seen the Nightmare on Elm Street movies.
And Freddy Krueger wore, was it more like a bolo hat? What did it have? It wasn't a top hat.
It wasn't
by
a top
any
hat.
means. And some people see a top hat.
Some people see a top hat. Some people see a bolo hat. Some people see a fedora.
Cowboy hat.
Yeah, some people see a cowboy hat.
So it's not even the same hat.
No.
Some people see a cloak. Some people don't see a cloak.
So why is there this, assuming it is sleep paralysis, why do you see the hat? That's just weird. I mean, Devin and I talked about this on the way down here.
I always picture the Jeepers Creepers.
Yeah,
guy.
a lot of they brought that up in a lot of the podcasts I listened to also.
I mean, it was kind of creepy art. Mine at least was like an Abe Lincoln like style.
Yeah,
top hat.
and I've
Like a
seen people
true top
report
hat.
that. Before I forget, because I was going to mention it earlier, I want to say that I listened to a couple podcasts about this, and one that I listened to that was really, really good was, of course, Xander and Stone. Xander and Stone did a podcast about shadow people. So I listened to that one, and I also came across a podcast that I really liked called Weird, Obscure, and Possibly Unsafe. it was a podcast that reminded me a lot of you and I. It was a man and woman doing it, and I really liked their podcast. It was a really good podcast, so I'm giving them a shout out. But these podcasts all talked about this stuff, that it's like the Jeepers Creepers guy, or like Freddy Krueger. A lot of similarities with Nightmare on Elm Street. But Devin and I talked about this on the way down here. I'm going to poo-poo the sleep paralysis because so many people see this thing
wide awake
when they're awake. But then that leads to the question: is this something that comes to you? Assuming it's some kind of creature, does it come to you through sleep paralysis, and then you somehow manage to like manifest it into reality?
I mean, it could,
which is a frightening thought.
It could have been a product of my night terrors and stuff. So I mean, because then you get into Talpa and like mentally creating some.
Do you want
to
explain what a Talpa is?
A Talpa is when you like believe something basically into reality.
It's basically a mass population, collectively believing in a cryptid, like Slender Man.
Yeah, and that's that Slender Man pops up with that because there's people that legitimately think Slender Man is a real thing now because so many people know about it and are afraid of it that they actually manifest it into reality.
Yeah, like it's like a creature that feeds on attention. So it takes on the image of, something that people are actively believing in.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there was an experiment done.
Yeah, the Philip experiment, where this group of ghost hunters like made a really intricate backstory of this supposed ghost that they wanted to manifest and they did. They got activity because they believed in this and created it so much, which is a frightening thought.
And that's the thing, they literally created a ghost.
If you have sleep paralysis and you see this thing and you're so afraid of this thing that you experience in sleep paralysis that you actually make it come to life, which is a disturbing thought. But that will get us to our next theory, which is a strange Freddy Krueger-like creature. So the strange Freddy Krueger-like thing comes from, and this showed up in a lot of podcasts that I listened to. Back to that Quartz article, it says, quote, "In 4 years spanning the late 1970s and early 1980s, 18 seemingly healthy Hmong men living in the United States perished suddenly in their sleep. Almost 100 more deaths followed in the next decade before it tapered off. Doctors ascribed the deaths to a condition with the alarming name of sudden unexpected nocturnal death syndrome, or SUNS. In the years since, researchers have theorized that many SUNS deaths are caused by Brugada syndrome, a genetic condition more common in people of Southeast Asian descent that causes irregular heartbeats and increases the risk of sudden death. But in the Philippines, Thailand, and Laos, and other places where such deaths were slightly more common, SUNS has a different name that often translated as some variation of nightmare death syndrome. This name suggested that it was the dream itself that killed people, a sort of real-life version of Nightmare on Elm Street, the horror flick in which people were murdered in their dreams by the blade-fingered Freddy Krueger. And if you died in your dreams, you died in real life too. In an effort to understand Hmong interpretations of these deaths, Adler, I don't know who that is, interviewed Hmong refugees living in Stockton, California. When asked about common nightmares, men and women described a figure called Da Cho, an evil spirit that visited sleepers at night, pressed upon their chests, and attempted to smother them as they slept. Almost all the interviewees were familiar with Da Cho, 58% having reported been visited by the nightmare creature themselves. So that was where the inspiration for Nightmare on Elm Street came from. What was his name? Wes Craven? Wes Craven saw an article about these Hmong men dying in their sleep, and that started the Nightmare on Elm Street thing.
That's funny because there's like an urban legend going around that it was inspired by an actual child murderer.
Oh, really?
No, I heard that too, actually.
No, because
it's not true.
I heard
obviously.
that this was where he got the inspiration from, was these men dying in their dying from their nightmares, and that made him think of creating Freddy Krueger.
Well, it's good you cleared that up at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, a
So
lot of people
I don't
think
know. I don't know if I buy that there's like a Freddy Krueger type creature that does that.
It sounds like an unfortunate medical condition.
Yeah. Another theory is a demonic / otherworldly creature that feeds off of fear.
I can buy that.
This is where
my mind goes.
And I knew at some point we were going to talk about this on the podcast. This is where we get into the weird world of Loosh. Loosh. The word Loosh was coined in 1985 by out-of-body experience researcher Robert Monroe in his book Far Journeys. According to an article on scarenormal.com called, quote, "What is a Loosh Energy Farm?" The article says, quote, "The term loosh was coined by Robert Monroe, who was an expert in astral travel. He said that he was able to use matrix glitches in our planet and reality to have interactions and explore other worlds and dimensions. Monroe claims that he has had more than 1,000 astral travels and contact with other dimensions, and that he had been doing that for more than a decade. In one of his journeys to another dimension, he discovered something sinister. A life force energy called loosh is created by constant fear, materialism, pain, anxiety, etc. It's also created with indefinite wars, poverty, natural disasters, diseases, and all situations where people die or suffer. When any human being dies on planet Earth, the beings who put us here, known as the Archons, feed on their loosh, which is expelled at death. Basically, the greater suffering the living being goes through in life, the more loosh is then produced. That's why these beings are creating constant, violent, and extreme situations on our planet. Basically, we are cattle, and our planet is a loosh energy farm. It's also speculated that some otherworldly beings can also feed off of our loosh while we are still alive, creating frightening situations and then drinking in our fear." So loosh is something that, if you listen to some of the really fringe conspiracy theory podcasts, you hear talk about loosh a lot. And loosh is basically our fear and misery that we give off. Part of me could buy that too.
I mean, bits and pieces. I don't know. It's
because
a weird
there's a, like, I love conspiracy stuff, but there's a limit where I'm like, yeah, I don't know.
Are you guys familiar with Odd Thomas? The Odd Thomas
No,
series?
you brought it up several times in the podcast, though.
And
I still mean to read it.
So it just reminds me, there are these creatures, I can't think of what they're called, but they follow people around who are going to be dying soon.
Yeah.
And when they go drag them off into the afterworld. I can't remember the name of the creatures. They're really creepy, but that sounds like what you're describing. So I wonder if he got his inspiration from.
And that's also kind of like Stephen King's book, Dr. Sleep. I never saw the movie because I really like the book. And if I really like the book, I don't ever want to see the movie for something. But Dr. Sleep was the sequel to The Shining. And in the book, Dr. Sleep.
The movie was actually really good.
In the book, the story is that his son from The Shining, Danny, grows up and he's like psychic and stuff. And there's a group called the True Knot that are going around and like they try to like torture children and frighten children in order to absorb their energy.
They're shining.
And that also ties in with the weird QAnon stuff about adrenochrome or adrenochrome, where they talk about Hillary Clinton. It was like they murdered babies because if something dies from fear, that they're able to drink this glandular secretion that makes them immortal and stuff. But there's always this like thread of fear somehow producing some kind of energy that you can subsist off of. And that's what this idea of loosh is. Yeah. And like I said, it's something that pops up to me all the time, is this idea of loosh. But I kind of buy the idea that Earth is a loosh farm for something, because we are kept in a constant state of fear, of misery, of uncertainty. But that's also life, So I don't know. There's an author named David Wilcock, and I've actually read some of his stuff because he talks a lot about synchronicity. And some of his stuff is like super good. And he wrote in one of his books, quote, "When you become a being that feeds off loosh, if your loosh supply is interrupted for even one day, you will die. That's energy they need absolutely. It's more important to them than what we would think of as money or food or water or any of the basic essentials for life. If we were to even have just one day on Earth, one single day, where a majority of people on Earth had something to feel good about, most of these beings would die off."
Sounds like an energy vampire.
Yeah, it is basically an energy vampire. But it sounds like that's what the Hat Man is. Like, he makes you purposely afraid, and maybe that's why he's not doing anything to you but lurking in the corner of your room. He's making you afraid, and he's like living off your fear.
Or do you think he's attracted to your fear and that's what brings him to you?
I think it's a little bit of both.
It could be both. Like, if assuming it's a creature, if he knows your predisposition to be afraid, he can be attracted to you, and then you can give off that extra fear.
Because, things happen in life naturally. Things bad.
Yep.
I think it's attracted to that. And all I know is from my time seeing it, you can't really describe how terrifying it it is.
Yeah.
You feel almost, like
Yeah.
there's a hole in your stomach,
Yep.
Like, so I don't even really remember how I got out of the room in the first place. So
Instinct took over, adrenaline took over,
But
right?
it's like this thing shows up to people who are experiencing turmoil in their life. I have members of dysfunctional families are the most likely to encounter Hat Man, especially during periods of strong emotional upheaval.
That has like a demonic element.
Yeah,
to
like
it
it's
too.
attracted to misery and depression and...
But I'm not so sure it's demonic, though. I just think I don't know. I don't know really what it feels like. I mean, it feels interdimensional almost.
I'll move on to the next one, and that is just demonic otherworldly creatures known as the Jinn. This one shows up a lot. Jinn, I've always been fascinated by the idea of Jinn, but I love like the idea of Jinn from like a Buffy the Vampire Slayer standpoint, where they're like demons, but they have like, you can have good ones and you can have bad ones.
And that's spelled...
It can either be DGINN or J... No.
I thought it was DJ.
It is. DJINN or JINN.
Okay.
I see it both ways. So the basic gist of this is that God created the angels, and then he wanted to create another species, and before he created humans, he created the Jinn. As far as powers, Jinn are kind of like between angels and humans, basically super-powered humans. Jinns have free will, and just like humans, some are good and some are bad. The Jinn became super prideful, which angered God, so he kind of shifted the Jinn to a nearby parallel universe, and then he created humans in the world we are currently in. The Jinn still live in this dimension right next to ours, and they can sometimes travel back and forth. They are kind of resentful of humans because God favors us, and the Jinn want to live back in our world rather than the one that they are in. So, I feel like that's very science fiction-y. You know?
I mean, haven't they proven that there's other dimensions already, though?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not inconceivable.
According to a 2019 article on Ranker called "Real Genies Are Far More Horrifying Than Anything You've Seen in Movies," the article says, quote, "According to the Quran, Allah created angels the day before he created jinn. It's generally believed that all angels are jinn, but not all jinn are angels. Unlike angels, which Allah created from light to follow his commandments, Allah gave the jinn free will and magical powers, making them kind of like a group of superheroes. It is this free will that eventually led the jinn to grow prideful over thousands of years and believe themselves better than Allah. Angered by this, Allah sent the angels to fight them, offing most of the evil jinn in the process. Allah then created man from clay and ordered the angels and jinn to honor Adam, the first man. Jinn are not inherently good or evil, although many do choose to indulge in bad behavior. They have a reputation for being mischievous and are known to deceive or fool humans, like tricksters. They're generally like tricksters. In addition to pulling pranks, they may change shape, tell lies, or otherwise lead people astray and corrupt them. Islamic scholars refer to jinn as dual-dimensional, meaning they have the ability to exist in both the human world and their own. Because of this, along with their ability to shapeshift, jinn are never seen by humans unless they choose to reveal themselves. Some believe that each person is assigned an individual jinn who watches over them and acts as a companion throughout their life. The connection between jinns and human is sometimes so close that stories have emerged about humans and jinn falling in love. That's really cute. Some people believe that the Hat Man is one of these jinn and it subsists off of fear. Also, according to an article on the website Brooklyn Bedding, that was like a deep Google search when I found something about the jinn
bedding?
on brooklynbedding.com called,
Like
quote,
bedding?
yeah,
like
mattresses, like
Okay.
mattresses.
Sounds like a different kind of website.
Yeah. Or like a,
But I was doing a
warehouse.
search on jinn and all of a sudden this popped up and I was like, what? An article on brooklynbedding.com called 5 Sleep-Stealing Monsters from Around the World. It says that in Turkey, their nighttime visitors are jinns called karabasan. The karabasan will hold the victim still and strangle them. But the karabasan always wears a hat, and if you manage to get that hat away from him, the jinn becomes a genie and will do your will. So maybe, if you have a hat man, try grabbing that thing off his head.
Jinn just doesn't fit for me. This doesn't feel like
No. I love
right
the idea.
theory.
I love the idea
Yeah,
of jinn. I really do, that they're tricksters and that they
Yeah.
mess with us, but I don't
feel like
see
two completely different
I don't see
entities.
the hat man actually being a jinn.
They're like Krista said, they're completely different.
Yeah.
I feel. I don't know. It's possible.
The
I mean,
stories I've heard don't come across as tricksters. They're just menacing and
Yeah.
nefarious. Yeah.
Do you have any other stories about
yeah. Actually, I do. We already talked about the original one. I mean, bedroom window. Eyes in the garage. But my sister actually had a couple herself too, and I kind of alluded to that earlier. But yeah, she was about to go over to a sleepover one night, and that's when she saw it out the window across the
neighbor's yard?
That's creepy because I know where that window was in your parents' bedroom, and that's not. If you walk past it, you're not gonna. Yeah, so that thing had to be super tall.
And it was actually later that night she had her second experience. She was getting picked up from my father, coming home from the sleepover. She was too scared to make it through the night. And as she's driving, pulling up into the driveway, she sees the figure walking under streetlights towards her down the sidewalk. I think that's what she said. Yeah, even though it was still a black silhouette, she could still see the trench coat even move as it did. And she watched it dematerialize, like almost like pixelate into nothing.
Oh, that's creepy. I don't like that.
And Mark was right there.
Mark was my dad was there.
You don't call him Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Marky Mark.
Yeah, my dad was there. He didn't see a thing. My sister was freaking out, but he didn't see anything. And I think that's why another reason why it was maybe kind of skeptical to them.
This happens a lot where somebody sees the Hat Man and somebody right next to them in bed doesn't see it.
And actually, more general, over the years I have seen this thing. Like you said, out of the corner of my eye constantly. I used to work at a Foot Locker warehouse, picking out online orders and stuff like that, and I'd always be leaning down to pick up a box of shoes, and I'd see this little black silhouette out of the corner of my eye just duck at the end of the aisle. And I'm even seeing it now at my current job at Shell.
Well, I thought you were going to say you're seeing it now down here, and I was like,
No.
no, don't bring that here.
No.
No, there's...
You have to check your ghosts at the door.
We have this standee that's bright red, and every night I keep seeing this black mass out of the corner of my eye on that exact standee, and there's nothing black over there. So
it's almost always existing in your periphery.
Is there video surveillance at the grocery or
there
the
is,
gas
but you
station?
never see anything. I don't know if I'm just going crazy because sometimes I feel it.
It necessarily wouldn't show up in surveillance.
Sometimes
video.
it doesn't.
It's just
There's stories of people trying to get a picture of it because they see it and then there's nothing there.
I honestly do think it could be a trickster or a shapeshifter because or it could even be my aunt. But the night after my aunt passed away, where we had our funeral, I was sleeping in bed and I woke up to see this shadow, kind of her size and my mom's size. And I thought it was my mom, so I sat up, I was awake at this point, and said, "Hey, what's up?" And she, it rushed to the foot of my bed, and then, I blinked and it was gone.
That's so weird.
But it was another black silhouette, just in a different shape.
Yep.
But I think that house was horrible. You guys didn't even know the last experience I had there, too, with Emma, and the house was empty, and heard the door opening.
Yes, I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah. So that house, it's been, like I said, it's been following me ever since. But
I was going to say, I remember Brittany has had experiences in the new house, though, right?
I've even had experiences in the new house.
Me
Me and Ken, the old owner, kind of have this agreement that when I'm gone, it's his place. When I'm there, you got to respect my...
So you think it's the former owner?
I'm thinking so.
Yeah. Because I remember Brittany said she saw... what was really just from the waist down, somebody walking away across the living room or something when she was in her bedroom.
Yeah, the bottom half of a person.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And there's
which feels residual to me, someone's just going about their daily business,
very
maybe.
well could be. Even last week, my animals there were a couple of them staring at the same exact spot on the wall, and there was nothing there. Who knows? It's like I said, it's been following us our entire life.
Yeah.
So.
It sounds like it, and it sounds like something that does happen with this is that it follows you. It's a generational thing, and it'll follow you around all the time.
Yeah,
which isn't a good thought.
It isn't. It's actually quite terrifying.
Yeah.
But no, that's pretty much all I got. I've had quite a few. I wouldn't say the Reaper thing in the graveyard would be considered a shadow person.
No, because that was more of a... Because you sent us that as your story.
Yes.
When we did it, yeah.
I felt like it was more protecting the graveyard than anything, kind of looking over the place and everything.
The groundskeeper.
And I totally believe that.
Like we said on the way down here, when you guys were gone, I used to go take care of your dogs, and there were times that I was in there at night, and I never felt anything weird or creepy.
And for the most part, my parents didn't either. I didn't even realize till a couple of years ago my mom had that experience. So.
But that's also my old messed up apartment that had the guy crawl out of the bathroom and stuff, but it wasn't all the time. There was like, it was during usually February, like the rest of the year, he never felt creeped out in there, but in February it got active. So,
well, I think certain things just target certain people too.
I
And that's very
definitely-
isolating and
Yeah.
oppressive too, when
It
the
is.
people living with you don't experience it and don't believe you.
It was very frustrating.
Yeah.
I will say that.
moving on to two more theories. One of them is that these are remote viewers. The happyhealingshop.com on May 12th, 2020 had an article said, quote, Gigi, a psychic on YouTube who talks about her experience of interacting with and seeing where the Shadow Hat Man came from through a hypnosis session, says that the Shadow Hat Man kept visiting her room all the time. Through her hypnosis session, she managed to follow him back and saw where he was coming from, and that this person was doing a remote viewing of her, but she went back and remote viewed him. She found that he was from an earlier time, stayed in an apartment or hotel room that looked like it was from the 1950s or 1960s. Gigi distinctively remembered that the place had a sense of sadness and loneliness. On the coffee table, she saw a manila folder that was labeled, quote, Watchers. She suspected that her particular Shadow Hat Man was someone who was involved in a government program where psychics were being trained to do remote viewing. I thought that was very interesting because it's the first time I've ever heard anyone talk about their version of the Shadow Hat Man as a being that's traveled forward in time.
And
So that's one of the
remote
theories.
viewing via time travel?
Yeah, because you can remote view the past. But they're saying that
That's
these
interesting.
are either the past or future versions of ourselves that are going back and remote viewing. And some people wonder if what they see as the hat isn't the device that is letting them go back and remote view. But it's like, why are you going to go back and remote view somebody sleeping and sit in the corner of their bedroom and
Right.
watch them sleep?
That doesn't feel right.
No. Some people really buy into the remote viewers, that it's somebody remote viewing you while you're sleeping.
I do think that could explain some paranormal activity. It just
Well, I think so
doesn't fit
too.
with the
I
Hat
think
Man.
it could explain ghosts, that it's just
Yeah.
somebody remote viewing you.
Yeah.
I don't buy it with the Hat Man though.
No, I
And somehow
wouldn't either.
remote viewing is way creepier than a ghost.
Yeah, I think so too.
Like an invasion of
I
privacy.
think so too.
I would not look good in an Abe Lincoln hat. So
I don't think it would fit on your head.
And I actually have two more, but
Slayer.
we're going to save my last theory as a mini mystery because it can be very extensive. So we're just going to, this last one is hallucinations caused by sound waves. An article from theguardian.com called The Fear Frequency says, quote, have you ever wondered what a ghost sounds like? Engineer Vic Tandy may already know. In the early 1980s, Tandy was working in a laboratory designing medical equipment. Word began to spread among the staff that that lab might be haunted, something Tandy put down to the constant wheeze of life support machines operating in the building. One evening he was working on his own in the lab when he began to feel distinctly uncomfortable, breaking into a cold sweat as the hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. He was convinced he was being watched. Then, out of the corner of his eye, Tandy noticed an ominous gray shape drifting slowly into view, but when he turned around to face it, it was gone. Terrified, he drove straight home. The next day, Tandy, a keen fencer, noticed that a foil blade clamped in a vise was vibrating up and down very fast. He found that the vibrations were being caused by a standing sound wave that was bouncing between the end walls of the laboratory and reached a peak of intensity in the center of the room. He calculated that the frequency of the standing wave was about 19 hertz, and soon discovered that it was produced by a newly installed fan. When the fan was turned off, the sound wave disappeared. The key here is frequency. 19 hertz is in the range known as infrasound. We've talked about infrasound before.
It's related to Bigfoot,
Yeah.
too.
Below the range of human hearing, which begins at 20 hertz. Tandy learned that low frequencies in this region can affect humans and animals in different ways, causing discomfort, dizziness, blurred vision by vibrating your eyeballs, hypertension, and fear, possibly leading to panic attacks.
Sort of like EMF,
Yeah.
high EMF.
A more recent investigation took place in an allegedly haunted 14th century pub cellar in Coventry, where people have reported terrifying experiences for many years, including seeing a spectral gray lady. Here, Tandy also uncovered a 19 hertz standing wave, adding further evidential weight to his theory. In an interesting parallel, researchers have recorded that prior to an attack, a tiger's roar contains frequencies at about 18 hertz, which might disorientate and paralyze their intended victims. Is this the sound of fear itself?
I would definitely think so. I mean,
Yeah, but I just don't think that can account for all of the sightings.
No.
One interesting thing that I didn't really get into here was that they said it seemed like a lot of people that saw the Hat Man in their room had their TVs on. So some people theorize it has something to do with a frequency. If your TV is on in the room, that it's something to do with the frequency of, and that first story, the very first one I read in here, the guy was laying in bed and he had a TV on in his room. So some people theorize it has something to do with the television frequency bringing this thing in.
I didn't have a TV in my room at that
and a lot of
point,
people that see it don't. And that's
people are just trying to make connections.
what's
that don't
frustrating
exist.
about this is that there's all these theories, but there's so many sightings of this thing that don't
fit.
follow, that
Right.
don't fit the theories. So I don't know. I'm good. Before we go to what we think, I'm just going to read this one last thing because I actually thought it was really kind of cool. And like I said, I have this whole other section that I want to get into with this, but that is going to be a whole separate mini mystery.
Nice. You have it all researched and ready
Yeah, I
to
do.
go.
I have it all researched and ready already.
You're one step ahead of me.
Like, I thought this was interesting. This was from a February 2021 Live Science article called, quote, "Dark Watchers have been spooking California hikers for centuries. What are they?" The article says, quote, "For hundreds of years, people have looked up at the hazy peaks of California's Santa Lucia Mountains at sunset and have seen tall, cloaked figures standing there staring back at them. Then, within moments, the eerie silhouettes disappear. These twilight apparitions are known as the Dark Watchers, shady, sometimes 10-foot tall men bedecked in sinister hats and capes. They primarily appear in the afternoon, and according to a recent article on sfgate.com, visitors to California have seen them perched ominously on the mountaintops for more than 300 years. When the Spanish arrived in the 1700s, they began calling the apparitions Los Vigilantes Oscuros, literally the Dark Watchers. SF-Gate managing editor Katie Dowd wrote in the article, quote, "And as Anglo-American settlers began staking claims in the region, they too felt the sensation of being watched from these hills. One famous observer who felt the presence of the Watchers was the American author John Steinbeck. In his 1938 short story called Flight, a character sees a black figure leering down at him from a nearby ridgetop. As Steinbeck writes, quote, "But he looked quickly away, for it was one of the Dark Watchers. No one knew who these Watchers were, nor where they lived, but it was better to ignore them and never to show interest in them." And this ended up being a family obsession. Steinbeck's son Thomas went on to co-author a book about the Watchers with painter Benjamin Brode. One theory, according to Dowd, is that they are merely figments of the observer's pattern-seeking minds. In other words, it's a classic case of pareidolia, a psychological phenomenon in which an observer's brain finds patterns or significance in a vague or random image. This pattern-seeking effect could be amplified by the presence of fog or low-flying clouds, according to Dowd. Shadows cast against clouds are responsible for another infamous illusion known as the Brocken Spectre. The Brocken Spectre. German locals near the Harz
I knew
Mountains.
that had to be German.
Yeah. German locals near the Harz Mountains have for centuries reported seeing shadowy figures on Brocken Peak, Dowd wrote. In reality, the Brocken Spectre could happen when shadows, like those of a hiker, are cast on a particularly misty mountain peak. If the sun is behind the observer, the mist plays with the shadow, making it look huge and menacing. So people see these things on the mountain, but they're figured that they're just
Like Matrix.
or seeing patterns. I just thought that was cool, so I threw that in there.
Creepy if it's true.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
But I have studied a lot about the Hat Man. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think?
You already know pretty much what I think.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I didn't have to do much research on
No, you had. I would prefer doing
You
my
just had to show
research.
up.
I like my research better where I'm typing on my computer, looking up stuff in the morning rather than real life stuff. But
yeah. No, I think it's an interdimensional being.
Yeah.
I mean, it shows up out of nowhere. It disappears out of anywhere. I mean, that could be a ghost too, but it just, the fear and everything. I mean, and all these accounts from other people. I mean, it's not of this world.
no, and I 100% agree. I think it's some kind of like a dimensional, transdimensional creature. And I really do believe that this thing sucks in your fear, because a lot of people said they see it and they're far more afraid than they feel like they should be. Like this thing is actually making them more fearful than they should be. And that I really do think that it is some kind of creature that subsists on fear.
I agree.
I don't buy maybe the sleep paralysis thing, But
I hate that that's used as an explanation for everything.
I do too. But and I kind of like the idea that maybe it is a sleep paralysis thing that you end up bringing you manifest into the real world. But there are just so many examples. And like I said, my 6th grader telling me about this before he even knew this was ever a thing. Like he saw this thing. So I mean, this thing is legit. This thing is real. You know,
I agree.
What do you think? Do you think?
Yeah, I think the interdimensional piece could explain why so many people across the world are seeing the same, not identical figure, but
one like
such similarities.
Yeah.
You know?
And who knows, maybe a group of shadow people, not just one set, shadow person.
Yeah, and that's another question.
Yeah.
Is it a
more
group
than
of
one,
things or
think.
is it one thing?
I think it's
then,
almost like a quote-unquote species of... it's the wrong word,
yeah,
but it's
some of the
how to
research that I was
explain
looking
it.
at suggested that it's like a species of thing. But why the hat? That's one of the big questions is why the hat?
Because it's something recognizable. It's culturally recognizable, and maybe in Mexico they see one that has a hat that's more culturally appropriate for that area. I don't know.
Well, there's I didn't put it in my notes, but there's a old brand of wine.
That would be interesting to research to see if people in different locations see a hat. Like in Texas, do they see ones wearing cowboy hats?
Yeah.
You know, it seems logical to me.
Or I mean, in Mexico, like you said, sombrero.
Right.
Or maybe because we're up here in the north more. I mean, that's why I saw a top hat. More like Abe Lincoln style.
Right.
Like who knows?
Maybe it's something that existed once. Thousands of years ago.
There's a brand of wine called Sandeman, and this goes back to 1790, and this is their logo. And a lot of people say that that's very reminiscent of the Hat Man, even though it looks like a Zorro kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of.
A little bit.
But one of the theories that I came across on a lot of these podcasts is people think that this is something, and this something is able to nudge people, it persuaded somehow, gave suggestions to create the Nightmare on Elm Street movies to something in order to get this vision of it out there to make it stronger. That it's somehow influencing somebody's mind. And Devin and I were talking about on the way here, when you look at the neighborhood watch signs, like the metal road signs that are neighborhood watch, it has a figure on it that's the Shadow Man.
It's pretty uncanny.
That the Hat Man, it's the figure of the Hat Man. And a lot of people say that whatever this thing is influencing people to put this image of it out there to make it stronger.
To make it more prominent.
Which is also a frightening idea.
It is.
But I don't know. Like the hat thing, I don't get. One of the podcasts I listened to, they suggested because it's always been like a symbol of power. If somebody has a hat, it's like a symbol, like how the old FBI guys always have a hat. It's a symbol of power. And some people think that it's because
or a top hat is a symbol of wealth, maybe.
Yeah, that some people think that this is some creature, and it originally decided. Saw some old 40s or 50s movie, and it's like, oh, that's what they look like. Let's look like that. And then, So
it's almost like mimicking.
Yeah. But then they jokingly suggested that it's going to be we got to update our look. And then it's going to show up in parachute pants and dance around like MC Hammer.
A baseball cap.
Like the Internet Explorer of ghosts.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know.
It's always a few decades behind this.
It's just I don't get the hat. The hat thing is weird. Does the hat thing give it some kind of power? I mean, the turkey, the thing in Turkey where if you take off the hat, you can control it. The hat thing to me is weird. Why the hat?
Yeah, why a hat? What's the purpose of the hat?
It's across the board. Everybody sees this hat. Sometimes a different hat.
Right.
But why do we see a hat on this thing?
Because it sets it apart from other entities? I don't
and
know.
a lot of people say that they see
really
this thing as the boss of the Shadow Man because they say sometimes they see the Hat Man accompanied by Shadow Men. So they almost say it's like the boss of the Hat Men. So maybe, of the Shadow Men. So maybe that denotes it as the boss. I don't know.
Like a Shadow Man mafia.
It's just so weird. I can't, looking at all this stuff, when I watched that documentary, it's one thing to read some Yahoo's account of it on Reddit, but it's another thing to see these people being interviewed, start crying because they're so affected by, I know Devin is. I mean, Devin's super affected by the stuff that he saw.
Yeah.
I still am. I mean,
So yeah,
Said it changes
yeah.
you.
So it's one thing to read somebody's account on Reddit that you don't know if it's genuine, but when you see somebody or know somebody in person that this has happened to, this is a thing. This is not sleep paralysis.
No.
This is something.
It's not hallucinations.
No. So it's something, and I don't know what it is. And a lot of the articles I said this is something that people should be, like, scientists should be looking into, because this is a phenomena.
as crazy as it sounds.
Yeah, as crazy as it sounds, and it's hard to say it, but I think this is some kind of creature. I really do.
Yeah.
So, anything else you guys want to add for the Hat Man?
I mean, not really. No. Well, let me check my notes.
Check your notes.
Because I took notes too. Well, I mean, we kind of mentioned this, but I mean, I just want to reiterate that I really do think that this thing does come around in times of great trauma or distress.
Yep.
Because I mean, you guys know I've had a rough couple of weeks myself, and I all of a sudden I'm starting to see it all over again. So, I mean,
that just feeds into the idea that it's attracted to
fear or misery or sadness.
Yeah. Strong emotion of any kind, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's
Of the
pretty much
negative
all I
sort.
got.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I got, really.
And with the Loosh thing, I always think of, even though it's really dumb, is Twin Peaks. There was like a scene in the old Twin Peaks where Bob, that is like the killer, goes back to like the lodge, like the Black Lodge where they live, and the little midget guy asks him, he calls it Garmonbozia, but basically it's the same as Loosh, where he asks Bob for all of that, and then it says in like the subtitles, it says pain and misery, and then he like spits all this stuff like out on the floor that looks like cream corn, and that's like all the people's misery that he managed to like suck up, and that's what Loosh is to me, is like
Cream corn.
like cream corn. Twin Peaks cream corn.
See, I knew I hated cream corn.
Yeah, I hate cream corn too, but I think that's kind of what it is that there's like a fear that is energy. I mean, there's everything is energy. So our fear is like a specific kind of energy, and I think that's what this thing lives off of. I think that's why it doesn't kill you. It just scares you because it just wants to,
You're a source of food for it.
Yeah.
An energy source.
But even in my like really like when I had that couple weeks ago where I was super anxious and really doing bad, like nothing appeared to me to so I don't know why it appears to some people and to some people it doesn't.
I mean, I don't know.
I don't know either. It's just, it's weird, but it's a thing. Like I'm convinced that this is some kind of thing. I don't ever want to run into it.
Right.
But no, I don't want to. I feel like I can barely hold myself together half the time anyway, much less, like the chuckle, the mechanical chuckle was enough the other night in my room that it was kind of like not cool.
I think I have a way of just blocking things out.
Yeah.
Like I have some kind of shield up that says I don't really want to experience that, so I'm not going to.
And people do. I totally believe that. I believe everyone has abilities and everyone is sensitive. It's a matter of unlocking that.
Yeah.
And I prefer to keep mine locked.
Yeah.
I've certainly had some terrifying experiences, and it's enough for me to be like, no.
A lot of the stuff I read said that this thing generally like shows up around 2 or 3 in the morning to most people. And then I think I'm up at that time usually anyway, so it's like, does it get annoyed at me that I'm up? If it wanted to appear to me when I was sleeping, it would be like 9 o'clock at night.
It's like standing outside your room. When is he going to fall asleep?
This guy sucks. Let's go somewhere else.
Can I come in yet?
So I don't know.
Standing there checking his pocket watch.
If any of our listeners, if any of you guys have had experiences with the top hat, with the Hat Man, let us know.
Not just a top hat. It's got to have a man attached.
Yeah, not just a weird top hat scenario.
Send us your pictures of hats.
Yeah, send us your hat pictures.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, my if I ever come back as a shadow person, it's going to be in a baseball cap and a
For
flannel.
sure.
Baseball cap and flannel. You'll know that's me.
I'll know.
Yeah,
I'll know
maybe
it's
next.
you.
But it freaked me out when I did hear that chuckle, how it just instantly filled me with this like electrical sensation of fear in my
know what
body.
you're
So I'm
talking about.
hoping that wasn't the start of something, because I like my apartment being not haunted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now that we're done with the Hat Man for a while, I'm not going to be researching it. So if you guys are listening, leave me alone. I'm done.
Stepping away.
Seeing the guy at the end of the driveway was weird too. So
That's
I don't
creepy.
know. Poor Devin, he gets this all the time, that he sees this thing or experiences this thing.
Yeah, you start to get used to it after a while.
I'm surprised Mark and Rhonda have not experienced anything to do with it. It's just the kids.
I think, like you said, like I said, I think some people just don't want to, so we have a shield up.
Yeah.
Even though we're paranormal investigators and we go seeking this stuff, I want it on my terms.
Yeah.
I don't want it seeking me out.
Yeah. And they say that's what this Hat Man does. If you start looking into it, it starts looking into you. So let us know what you guys think. Devin, thank you for sharing your stories with us.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having
Oh,
me.
no problem. We wanted you on here for since the
You're like
start.
family.
Yeah, you are
Of
like
course.
family.
You
It's like
guys
the
know
little
your
brother.
family.
Yep.
You're family to me too.
Yeah, so let us know what you guys think. Hatman, yay or nay? I'm totally on the yay side. I think that is something creepy.
I'm like, not like yay, but
No,
I'm
that's
totally,
not a yay. That's like a
yeah,
yay.
I'm totally
Should I-
on the.
Yep.
Should I pull
It
a Shyamalan
exists.
move and
Yep.
say no, I don't believe in it now? No.
That'd be a little
That'd be a
awkward.
yay for me too.
Yeah. Now what? Should we do our songs?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm actually looking my.
Okay. Our song theme for this week was a song that we love that somebody else introduced us to.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go first because I might have even talked about this song on here. At this point, I don't remember anymore. But it is a song that Corey, my brother, wanted me to listen to for years. And I just never got around to listening to it. And then one day I finally did. And now it's become one of my favorite songs. And I love that Corey knew that this was like my kind of song. Like, I love this song. It's like a power pop, not power pop, but it's like a power emo, like the whole emo genre. It's like a power, but I love this band. This band is so, so good. And this is one of my all-time favorite songs. It's one of my favorite sing-along songs when I'm driving. It is by the band Funeral for a Friend, and the song is called Streetcar.
Okay.
And I love it. I love the video because the video has the little blonde girl that was on the album cover, and that's kind of like, that's become like Funeral for a Friend's like icon. That's like their image is that blonde girl. But I love, love, love this song. It's a fast song. The band is like the guitarist was very influenced by Iron Maiden, and I love Iron Maiden. I think Iron Maiden are just like one of the best bands ever. And every now and then you can tell in their guitar, you can hear some Iron Maiden slip in there. So yeah, it is Streetcar by Funeral for a Friend. Love the song. One of my all-time favorites. Thank you, Corey. I'm sorry I was so pokey about finally getting around to listening to it. Dev?
Actually, my old coworker from Shell actually introduced me to this song. It's from Local Natives. It's Wide Eyes.
What kind of music is it? Is it like indie, folk?
It's more indie,
Okay.
I would say. I don't really know what you would really consider it, but I would say more indie. They're kind of more peaceful. I mean, kind of 21 Pilots-esque.
Okay.
But kind of their own thing at the same time. It's just chill music to kind of relax
to.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what's the name of the song?
Wide Eyes by
Wide
Local
Eyes.
Natives.
Okay.
We'll
cool.
post that tomorrow or when we post the episode.
Tomorrow.
Yep.
Oh, my turn.
Chris is just looking at me like
Blank stare.
just a blank stare.
Mine was I was exposed to the song by a stranger who I don't know that they listen anymore. I'm not going to say their name because I don't even know if they're listening anymore, but I'm thankful for the song because it's remained one of my favorite songs to this day. But the artist is Agnes Obel, and the song is called Familiar. And it's
Never heard
like
of it.
nothing I'd ever heard before. It's kind of dark and haunting and like music that I love. So Agnes Obel, the song is Familiar.
So you guys kind of have that kind of music, and I got like a power emo punk band kind of thing going on, but that's okay. Awesome. Very cool. What else do we got? Listener questions?
Jokes?
We got questions.
You actually were able to get into the
I
thing?
screenshot them when I was able to
good.
get into it, so I
I'm
was actually thinking,
I'm going to read a joke while you're...
looking.
Yeah. I can never remember what I read last. Why did Jimmy's parents scream when they saw his grades?
Because there was a bee on it.
Yep. Waka, waka, waka. What do you call a stick that won't do anything you want?
Oh, God.
A stick in the mud.
Uh,
That deserves a...
very predictable, but also very entertaining.
Yes.
So.
That's from the Laugh Out Loud jokes from Eli.
Very nice, Eli.
Thanks, Eli.
Just
Time
looking at
is
these. I'm just
passing.
looking at these.
There's Lucy.
Kind of like this one. By Anonymous. You get to name the firstborn child of your least favorite person. What do you name the child? You can pick the gender too because science or something.
I mean, I think the worst thing you can name someone is like a serial, like Jeffrey Dahmer. That's what I would name their
Jeffrey
kid.
Dahmer Jr.?
I would name their son Jeffrey Dahmer.
Jr. Okay.
I would probably go with the same thing, to be honest. I mean, you don't want to name people like Bundy, but I don't know. Agnes. I never really liked Agnes.
Agnes. I just said Agnes.
Yeah,
Agnes
it's a
Obel.
singer.
Did I influence your answer?
You might have, actually. I have the attention span of a goldfish.
Yeah. I'm going to go with one that I saw on The Onion, because The Onion, the satire newspaper, always had like a list, like a little top 10 percentage of this list, but it was like the least popular name for boys. And like one of them on there that always made me laugh was spelled Moron, but then it said after it pronounced Maroney. So I'm gonna go with moron/Maroney.
Maroney.
Because like I
cute.
said, I hate Kurt Konechny. Like, it's such an unpronounceable name. You do a good job.
I love Kurt Konechny.
Well,
He's
thank
like
you.
one of
Kurt
my
Konechny
favorite
loves you
people.
too, but it's just such a hard name to pronounce, and I hated it until one of the girls I knew in college was named Suzanne Sorhole.
Oh.
Sorhole.
Yeah, that is sad.
Yeah.
My maiden name was Sorwhitey, and I got made fun of for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. But yes, after Suzanne Sorhole, I felt better about Konechny.
I mean,
Yeah, Sorhole.
I probably would too.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to go with moron/Maroney. Moron pronounced Maroney for name of my least favorite person. Next one by Anonymous, favorite board/card game.
Ooh.
I'm surprisingly not a game person. I loathe Monopoly. I hate Monopoly. Just hate it.
I would say Cards Against Humanity,
Cards Against Humanity is
That's
fun.
fun.
but I don't play seriously. I play for the funniest answer.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I really like cribbage. Jim and I play cribbage a lot.
I don't know cribbage. my friend Aaron that I geocache with, got hooked on cribbage, and I just don't know. I know it comes with that funky little board where
Yeah,
you got to
it's
move
fun.
the pegs.
It's very portable. You're doing math. I don't know.
yeah, because that's always fun.
Yeah. You just have to remember how to. You always want 15s.
It's a dumb answer, but I would say Trivial Pursuit. I love
That's not a
Trivial.
dumb
I like
answer.
Trivial Pursuit.
Trivial's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like Trivial Pursuit. Card.
I
I'm
love
not-
Risk. Risk is
Oh,
fun.
I hate Risk.
Oh, I like it.
No.
There's actually a board game called Pandemic, and we were playing it last year before this all happened. And we haven't
so you
played
probably
it.
caused it.
We
You
probably caused it.
Good
We
job,
haven't played
Krista.
it since.
When I
but-
was a kid, I liked Mousetrap, but I only liked setting up the thing. I didn't like
Hungry
actually
Hippo.
playing it.
No, I'm having
Hippos.
like all these
Hungry
flashbacks
Hippos.
to like
Hungry
Oh,
Hippos
done
was
did
just
it now.
pounding that thing to get those marbles into the hippo's mouth.
exactly.
Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
Rock'em Sock'em
Oh,
Robots
nice.
were fun. I remember Don't Break the Ice.
Hmm.
Remember Don't Break the Ice, where it was like on a little table and it had all these blocks on it, and there was a man on it, and you had to tap out one of the blocks.
It sounds familiar, but I don't know.
And then there was Cootie with the Cootie bug.
Operation.
Operation. I hated Operation. I never liked Operation because I hated that buzzing sound.
Yeah, basically, we just choose every board game that we remember.
Yeah.
Ouija board? No,
No,
we
that's
don't
your
play
favorite.
that.
We don't play the
Yeah,
Ouija
I don't
board.
cross that
Oh,
one.
we don't play that.
Should we do another one?
Sure.
Devin, I don't think Devin can really answer this one.
That's okay.
By Anonymous, it is one topic/story you will never cover on the Strange Sessions. I will start with
Stephen Avery.
Stephen Avery, just because I'm so tied in with people involved in that case. We were
For
talking,
me,
Devin and I were
yeah.
actually talking about that on the drive down here.
Yeah, that's
that-
something we won't cover either on our podcast.
For me,
No.
it's anything that is tied to like politics or
yeah.
or any sort of trigger for people.
No, we
I don't wanna
delved into
trigger-
politics once, and that kind
Yeah.
of angered some people, and we lost some listeners due to that. But, you know,
It wasn't really politics. We dove into social injustice.
Yeah, social-
and it was
yeah.
just an intro. And
but people know that I scoff at the QAnon stuff. So I think we're kind of transparent with our beliefs as far as what we like. But
I think there's conspiracy theory stuff that could dip into politics that maybe we would talk about, but I wouldn't ever just talk
no,
about
at
like,
some point I do
politics.
want to talk about COVID,
Yeah.
about how it started and the conspiracies around it, but not now because
Many-
now it's
many-
too.
that's
it is
like
yeah,
season
it is way
10.
too fresh.
That's
So I
season
do want to
10.
dip into that. You know, like another one that I think would be hard would be doing God, like
Yeah.
religion, because that's a real touchy thing for a lot of people.
I think as long as we approached it from just trying to show all perspectives,
Yeah.
I think that'd be okay. Because I think we covered something similar on Paranormal Palaver, and
Yeah, just I mean,
we just talked about theories and viewpoints and kept it very neutral.
But I mean, there's stuff that I don't like talking about. That, like this one that I'm saving from this one that I'm going to save for the next mini mystery is something I'm uncomfortable talking about, and that's spoiler. It's drugs. Like I don't like talking about drug stuff.
it's definitely stuff you got to kind of tiptoe around.
Yeah, and that one I think we're actually going to probably put a warning on, like because I just don't like talking about drugs.
Yeah, I think for me, it's anything that could be sort of emotionally triggering for people. I wouldn't want to do that.
No, something like doing the Elsa Gate stuff is hard because once you delve into pedophilia and you know, like I talk about with my students, and so many of them are afraid of being trafficked and stuff. The 6th graders and stuff I talk to, and I've become like hypersensitive to news stories about teachers and stuff sleeping with their 11, 12-year-old students. And it's just like,
you can't even fathom
I can't fathom.
Right?
No, I can't. And it's just like boggles my mind. So that's something I have a very hard time with.
You actually have a new series or movie or series up on Hulu with that too. Kate Mara from American Horror Story. She was a teacher, and she slept with one of her students, and she gets caught. So, I mean, I haven't watched it personally, but it's always advertised on my shows when I watch. So.
On Hulu?
On Hulu, yep.
Huh. My Hulu ran out because I only used it to watch Letterkenny.
Yeah, unfortunately, we got to wait more for that. So.
Yeah, I know.
Well, luckily, this is a podcast about all things strange, so it's not. We wouldn't be delving into stuff like that. You know?
The Elsa Gate kind of got into the pedophilia stuff, but there is a surprising amount of like conspiracy, like pedophilia is weird, but that's something that. I mean, I would talk about it because it would also kind of be like, you need to be aware of this. Like Elsa Gate, I wanted to do because you need to be aware that there's these weird videos that kids are watching.
I think the way we approach it, though, we're sensitive to our listeners. And
and I love that people say that we make scary things kind of enjoyable because we're kind of funny.
Yeah.
So I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the ones that we kind of went off on a tangent there, but those are the ones that we probably wouldn't talk about on the show.
We ended up talking at length about the things we wouldn't talk about.
We're good at tangents. We should have called this podcast Tangents and Other Stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that's it.
Yeah. I don't think we're forgetting anything. We remembered a taste test.
We remembered the taste.
We did a joke.
Speaking of which, eat your Beaver Nuggets.
Oh, I'll eat my Beaver Nuggets. I don't even think Jim will eat these because he doesn't like caramel. He's like some kind of weirdo.
How do you not like caramel?
I don't know. There, you got to hear 2 taste tests.
It gets better every time.
Those were good. Our deets, you can email us at thestrangesessions@gmail.com. We are on Twitter at Strange Session without the final S. We are on Instagram where Krista does just like an award-winning job at the Strange Sessions.
Of like taking screenshots of stuff people post on Facebook.
Hey, somebody's got to do it. You can send us postcards and snail mail to the Strange Sessions, P.O. Box 434, Manitowoc, Wisconsin, 54221-0434. And our phone number, call us. Our lonely little phone out in Reedsville, Wisconsin misses you and wants to hear from you.
I'm just picturing a phone, like sitting out in a field.
I have this picture of this weird little shed in the middle of nowhere, and then inside the shed is just a phone on a table.
We should put it next to the loneliest picnic table.
We have the loneliest phone. We have the loneliest phone in Wisconsin. Our phone number is 920-443-9602. Devin, any last words?
Well, just obviously a shout out to the family. My parents.
Yes.
And obviously I got to give myself a plug for my own podcast.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
Where can we listen to your podcast?
It is on Castbox and YouTube. It's Tales for the Dark - Creepy Internet Stories on Facebook.
Tales for the Dark?
Tales for the Dark.
Okay.
Tales from the Dark was unfortunately taken, so had to get a little unique with it. So, but yeah.
Speaking of that, listener stranger Michelle, that I talked to quite a bit, Michelle Brown, messaged me yesterday that there is another podcast that calls its listener strangers.
Oh no, they did.
And she wants us to look into legal action.
You're stepping on your turf.
I know, but then we do it and watch out. They were doing it first, so
probably.
we might have grabbed it from them.
There was also another Strange Sessions, and turned out it was an adorable 12-year-old girl.
Oh, we always
who was
wanted to
just
interview that young girl.
I know. She was just bored during the pandemic.
That's awesome.
And had interviews with her dog, so I couldn't really do anything about
we run
that.
Out of topics. We run out of topics. We might be having Lucy down here to ask Lucy about stuff. So, Devin, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much. You did great. He was nervous coming on here.
Yep, I'm very honored to be on here with you guys. It's been a long time coming, but
it was cute that your mom messaged me yesterday that you were super nervous, and I'm like, we're just 2 dorks in a basement talking into a microphone.
We're sitting in my basement talking about stuff.
You guys really did inspire me to get my podcast started. So, I mean, it's like sitting down with my mentors.
Oh, thank you. So. But all the podcasts we inspire are better than ours.
Oh, no, not by a long shot.
Inspire greatness.
So finally, I want to read this really, really sweet email we got from Jennifer, who I've just massacred her name when I gave her a shout out. And I feel so bad now because she put in there how to pronounce it. Jennifer Strop Vern. She sent us, and the title of the email was based on something one of us said in one of our last episodes. It is in all capital letters. It says, not subpar. So she wrote to us and said, "Morning, Kurt and Krista. Just wanted to send a quick note to you all. As I was listening to your catch-up episode on Monday, something Kurt said jumped out at me and made me shake my head. Your podcast is the furthest thing from being subpar. Since I have just recently found your podcast, I have been going back through old episodes to get them all, and I'm listening to right now the Halloween episode from 2020, and what you both are talking about in the opening chat segment is exactly why your strangers love this show. You are both just yourselves. You are so real and don't try to be anything else. You are not trying to conform to molds or industry standards. We love you just the way you are. Your podcast makes us feel like we are sitting with friends chatting and falling down one rabbit hole after another. For those of us that enjoy thinking outside the box and being open to endless possibilities, this is just what we need. I always feel like I am right there with you, and I love it that I get new theories and ideas that would never have come to my mind before. Your down-to-earth, laid-back format is just perfect, and because of it, you have grown a community here that really does feel like a family. Please keep it up and keep staying strange."
That's amazing.
That is so sweet. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Yeah, we don't conform to any standards, let alone industry standards.
Yeah, we don't conform to much anything, but we're just happy you guys like listening to us babble on about stuff in our weird Wisconsin accents.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So thank you. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Yeah,
Devin,
sweet.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
You actually get to join in on our Stay Strange, so that's kind of cool.
Hope you're
I'm probably
prepared.
Hope
gonna
you're
watch
prepared. Have you been practicing in front of the mirror like the past week?
I actually have a couple.
Okay.
Nice.
So from Krista, myself, and Devin from the Strange Cellar, until next time,
Stay
stay strange.